Hello, everyone, and welcome to our program today. This is Lisa Levinson with In Defense of Animals, and we are very excited to host this roundtable discussion. And it's a very special one today. It's on Black vegan activists who are making history, and I'm so excited to introduce you to all of them today. So, just to let you know, this program is part of Activist Appreciation Month, and I'll tell you a little bit more about this at the end of the program. But first, I want to let you know that if you have questions for any of the panelists, you're welcome to type them right into the chat box. And I'd like to also introduce the moderator of this discussion today, Miss Gwenna Hunter. She is with Vegans of LA and with Vegans for Black Lives Matter. Hi, Gwenna.
Hello. Thanks for joining us, everyone. This is going to be a really great discussion. We have some really amazing human beings here on this panel, people that I really admire in this movement and that are really doing really unique types of work. So thank you so much for joining. All right. And I guess what we can do is we can go ahead and get started and have everyone introduce yourselves. As Lisa said, I'm Gwenna Hunter, founder of Vegans of LA and Vegans for Black Lives Matter, and soon to come, Eating for Love, but we'll talk about that another time. All right, let's start with you, Sean.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sean Hill. I'm an actor, spoken word artist, host, and I'd say humanitarian even. I also do writing workshops for people that really need to connect with themselves and express themselves in new ways. And I'd say I kind of have been, I've also been a guest teacher recently for Cal State Northridge. So that's kind of a new term on my plate, as well as vice president of Education Ensemble, which is a theater mentor youth collective. And we're helping just marginalized students and youth that want to get out in theater more and be themselves more than they ever thought they could. And last but not least, I'm also on the board for Project Kind, which is a homeless reach out initiative in New Jersey as well. It's a long story.
That's fantastic. Like you are just like I was saying before we started, you're amazing human being and just a unicorn of unicorns. All right, and next we will go with Brenda Sanders.
As I was saying, hey everybody, I am Brenda Sanders. I am founder and executive director of Afro-Vegan Society, also co-founder of Thrive Baltimore Community Resource Center, and co-owner of the Greener Kitchen plant-based deli and market, and co-creator of Vegan Soul Fast and some other big projects out here in Baltimore, Maryland.
Beautiful. Thank you, Brenda. All right. And next we have Ri Taylor. Hey, Ri.
Hi. My name is Ri Taylor. I am the owner and head educator of Redemption Dog Education. I have a personal pack of 7 dogs where I utilize them to help people change their relationship with their personal dogs.
Beautiful. And I can't wait to get into that because your life is getting ready to unfold into something really amazing. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Beautiful. So what I like to do is just start off with the very first question, and then we'll move into some more personal questions for each presenter that we have here today. So the first one that I want to ask is, how did your upbringing get you here to this movement? What was your life like growing up as a child? I know personally for myself, I was curious about vegetarianism, never heard the word vegan, but my mom didn't play that. So it was like, I ate what was there. But I would love to hear from everyone just to find out about how your upbringing is affecting the way you advocate today. We will start with you, Ri.
So, I of course did not grow up vegan. My upbringing was very Southern. I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, where everything is fried, barbecued, and, you know, it has meat in it. When I first went vegan, I remember thinking, oh, no problem. You know, I'll be able to, you know, just go to my mom's house and eat, you know, just eat all the sides. Well, she put literally meat in all of them, the greens, and you know, and it, once I learned about being vegan, it really had me asking the question, you know, why? You know, why was it necessary to put, you know, meat in the greens and to put meat in the corn? And, you know, like I said, meat was just literally in everything. And so when I made that decision, it was it was difficult because I also realized that I had a lot of hold on to being a meat eater just simply because of my upbringing and things like that. So throughout this journey, and I'm sure we'll, you know, get to that later, I've had to learn a different relationship and a different attachment when it comes to food, just so I can stand true and know, you know, in the knowledge that I have in regards to veganism.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's interesting. Yeah. When you usually tell people, you know, you're vegan or they want to prepare something, they still put cheese, butter. It takes like so many different trials for people to actually understand what that means. So I totally
Sure.
relate to meat being in every side and the person still thinking that they're helping you out. All right, and we're going to ask you the same question, Sean, but with yours, I think we're going to put the flip because you are Afro-Colombian, which I didn't even realize. Um, and I know you, and we'll stick to the same question, but feel free to implement the part about you dealing with, like, trying to deal with both identities, but dealing more with the African American side versus the Afro-Colombian side.
Right. Not a problem. Yeah, I was gosh, I was raised in Inglewood, California. My parents both are from New York, but my mom originally came from Colombia, right? From Bogota, Colombia. And so just having that mix my whole life, even, it was so normal for me to live in a diverse upbringing, right? I even have cousins that are Irish. I have cousins that are Egyptian and from Bermuda. It was really nice to see that and feel kind of this collective of different, just different people to be around, right? Everyone spoke differently, everyone acted differently, but we're all family, and that's the beautiful part about it. So I'd say even growing up where my dad was so focused on logic and rational understanding and critical thinking, my mom had just the greatest amount of love and emotional outpour. She could make you feel like, oh my God, if you did something wrong, like you're on fire, right? And at the same time, if you do something right, like you're the greatest human being on the planet, right? Like moms, oh my God, high five to my mama. So the beautiful part, I think, was having that balance, you know? And so I got into, yeah, I'd say I got into acting and poetry because I wanted to find better outlets for all that, you know, for all this emotion, for all these thoughts that I'm having. And I basically had a had a moment in China where I took a scholarship to go to China and study theater over there. And that was actually the first time I ever stopped eating meat. And it wasn't because of China, it wasn't anything like that. It was this like moment with my body where it just stopped accepting meat and I started getting nauseous. And I checked it out. I had different types of meat at the time. I was like, maybe it's what I'm eating. Let me try this, let me try that. And then I was like, you know what, maybe I should just listen to my body right now and learn more about vegetarianism and things like that. And then I slowly became vegan, you know, in the next few years, I'd say after that. And that was 2006. So it's been a beautiful long journey for me to get to a place now where, along with my identity as well as my veganism, to kind of just feel content in both, you know? And I know that all the different types of cultures that I feel connected to now, you know, whether they're Mexicans or whether they're Guatemalan friends, whether they're I'd say even people from like just everywhere, just all people of color that are that I know we have a shared either history or oppression together, historically speaking. And at the same time, you know, I'm also human first, you know, so I'm able to bond with everyone and anyone of any background. And that's something I never took for granted, you know. So I think it informed my art, my choices, and even I'd say my activism in a way, where it could be from subtle to out loud, you know? So for one quick example I'll give you also is that in one event for the open mic I was hosting at Alloc, right? This great vegan spot in downtown LA that's still doing pickup and takeout, by the way. And I feel like I didn't know just choosing the flyer pictures where there was people of all colors and backgrounds on these flyers would matter so much until someone came to that event and I asked, why did you come here? Or how did you hear about it? Well, they said, I saw the flyer and I saw people that looked like me. And that hit home for me, y'all. Like, so that was just a really big significant factor in just how much more I know representation matters, even in a flyer, you know? So yeah, I could talk more about that, but yeah, my goodness.
That is so beautiful. And thank you for sharing that, because you're right. Representation does matter. And I know if I see, there's been different talks that I see online that I'm like, oh, this looks interesting. And then when I see the panel, and if I don't see anybody that has any form of my shade or within my culture, I'm not interested. So it really does make a difference. And I love what you said about being able to relate to all people, because you're human, you're human first. So thank you for sharing that, Sean. All right. And same question for you, Brenda. How did your upbringing and your journey, and this is, it's very broad, so it doesn't have to be so specific to veganism. It could expand any type of experience. How has that gotten you here so far?
So my experience growing up, I was raised in the projects of Baltimore City. So I would say the culture that I grew up in, it's probably amazing that I ended up where I am right now, especially in doing like animal advocacy, because in the particular culture where I grew up, there's this real like antagonistic sort of attitude towards animals. Like animals are either there to do a job, which is like, dogs are there to protect your property and cats are there to be mousers, and like that's it, and animals aren't really looked at as like members of the family so much as workers. And then every other animal is a threat. And so, it really was surprising even to me that I ended up like in the animal rights space. And growing up eating the foods that were available to us in the projects, like it's amazing that I ended up eating plant-based foods, because it was like there weren't any plants, any plant foods in the communities where I grew up. So I don't know. I guess I was always a little bit different, a little bit rebellious. And maybe that's sort of what led me away from what everybody else was doing when I was growing up. But I would say that growing up in that environment gave me an understanding of how detrimental a lot of the attitudes and the habits and traditions are to our community. And so um, growing up and ended up getting into food justice work, it happened because of my own personal experiences growing up and being food insecure and not having access to nutritious plant-based foods. So I guess in a way it's surprising that I ended up doing this work, but that my upbringing informs the work that I do.
That is beautiful. And I so freaking relate. I grew up in the inner city, but it was a little different. It wasn't like hardcore, but over the summers, I would spend the summers in a city called East Cleveland, which is the hood. And I would spend my summers there. And yeah, like you said, like dogs wouldn't be allowed inside of homes. They'd be chained to trees for the most part, given scraps. I never really saw, and used as weapons also, go into a fight, you bring your dog or something like that. Cats again being used to get rid of mice and rodents and things like that. And so like I have literally had to help evolve myself out of fear of dogs, I used to be afraid of cats, and now like the love of my life is a cat. She's right over there hanging out. And so, and I'm still coming out of that energy, but yeah, I just want to say I completely relate to that experience as well, growing up in the food desert myself. All right. And do we have any questions in here? I know we were supposed to check regularly and see just some comments. All right, thank you. Thanks, William, for joining. Hey, Dave, thank you for joining. All right, so the next question is something that is was a big concern for me, especially in 2020. I'm trying not to get so triggered this year by so many different things. But this question was inspired by Sean, and it has to do with talking about the conspiracies associated with Black Lives Matter or police brutality in general. I want to just go there for a little bit. I know I'm involved with the Black Lives Matter here in Los Angeles, and through experience, you couldn't ask for a more loving community. They're very bonded, they act in love, and this isn't an assumption, this is a mantra of theirs to work together in community and in love and in collaboration. I feel like the media has kind of portrayed BLM, and there's so many people in the movement that will think that because of what they've seen on television, that these different movements are evil. I just watched a movie the other day about Fred Hampton, about the Black Panthers. And I remember growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, we were taught that, you know, they were terrorists and that they were doing all this bad stuff. And I didn't know any better until I became a little bit older and found out the truth. So I wanted to find out from you all, are there any type of conspiracies associated with this movement, with BLM, police brutality, that you wanted to discuss, and how those type of conversations can transcend into peace and a more loving movement? And we'll go with you, Sean, so this was your question.
Yes. So, oh my gosh, like how much time do I have? So, I mean, I'd say in my personal experience, right, with the conversation I've been having this whole last year, it can definitely take a toll when I'd say I'm so focused on just, you know, the cause itself of, you know, correcting the wrongs, right? If a police officer does something wrong, they should be, you know, punished accordingly, right? And to even talk about that as a focal point, I've seen how much people that deflect, or whether it's conscious or unconscious, whether it's on purpose or not, there's a disconnect that happens, right? And I'm trying to see it up close better and better and better all the time. And the closest thing I can get to is that whatever the resistance is about the topic, that it somehow uh, battles their love of their country or of police officers, right? Or of America, and this, not even America itself, sometimes just the flag itself. There's a separate love for that I'm understanding, that means so much to them, especially people that associate the flag with veterans, right? And things like that. And so I'm getting to that place now of seeing that if I can have this conversation and keep it on the topic itself, then rarely it will go to these other wild conspiracy places, right? And I've gotten to a place now where, all right, if Black Lives Matter is what you say they are, or what you think they are, how would you confront this, right? How would you end police brutality? Asking questions back. I've been trying to just ask questions back in a very Socratic manner, right? And getting to a place where if they're answering the questions and we get to the same place, we're like, oh yeah, well, that's what Black Lives Matter is doing. They're trying to get those people out of office that are doing these corrupt things, and they're just holding people accountable. So I don't see what you're doing any different, right? Or have you ever been to a meeting? I'll ask that question. Have you ever been to a Black Lives Matter meeting? Have you checked out the website for yourself and not what people are saying about it, right? I'll also ask for resources. What are the resources that you're using to get this information, right? So yeah, let's pool up, let's team up on that. You know, let's share each other's resources and information, and make it so that it's more of a team aspect instead of me debating them. And that's been the toughest thing, but it's been working so far so good. And I'd say there's maybe only two people that have been the hardest to crack personally, that was, one was, I did not expect that when I asked, for example, a question about, I said, is there anything you could have seen in the Breonna Taylor case that the cops could have done better? Is there anything you could have seen that just the cops maybe, you know, doing something better in that moment, in that scenario, in that entire case? And their immediate response was, what, you want to lynch all these cops? And I was like, whoa, like, wait a minute, wait, what? Like, first of all, that never came out my mouth, right? And then I get defensive, and then I realize, wait, let me slow down. It's not about me, actually. This is their defenses. This is their personal security blanket that they're wearing to protect themselves from what they think I'm even saying, instead of actually listening to each other, right? And I always try to bring the person back to the focus of the point, whether they say about crime in Chicago or some other, you know, kind of deflection where it sounds rational to some people to say, what about black on black crime, which is one of the most offensive things I've been asked about ever in my life. Because in the same sense that someone doesn't go to a breast cancer awareness meeting and says, well, what about lung cancer? What about, we should think about that too. That's again, it's such a deflection that some people still don't realize they're making, that I'll do my best with patience, and then get to a point where if it's justified anger, I'll still let it out in a focused and loving way. And that, woo, that is a ballet that I do. I tell you, not all the time, but I do it well when I can. I do it well. And I'm telling y'all, so like that's like my first impression of everything that I wanted to say about that there's so much love to have for people that have either, whether it's actual racist ideology, whether it's deflection ideology, whether it's a disbelief or a shock that this stuff can be true. And I've known some people that still didn't know that, you know, Mount Rushmore was created with funds from the KKK, for example, right? Things like that, where you just don't know these things and they can seem unreal until someone tells you that, and you almost have to wait for them to digest it and then talk to them again. And I'm just always open for a conversation about that. And not everyone is, not every person of color or Black person is able to have that patience, but I've kind of made that part of my ritual as a poet to be able to provide that perspective.
I love that you call it a ballet, because one of the things that I said this year that I'm going to work on is not taking on other people's shortcomings, their issues as mine, and feeling the need to have to battle everybody out, you know, via Twitter fingers or, you know, messaging people and things like that. Like, I want to really be careful of what I give permission to as a trigger. So I love that you have been practicing that. And I feel like I've gotten better. I'm not great, but I've gotten so much better on that. Ri, asking you the same question, and I'll repeat it. Asking about like type of conspiracies associated, and just because I'm naming these, it could be anything within this movement, but associated with BLM, police brutality, or any type of transcending arguments. Like, are there any types of issues that you've come across and that you found your ability to use kindness and patience to filter those things?
So in regards to like BLM as a whole, I can honestly say that I'm thankful for the additional awareness that it has brought as a whole in the, you know, overall general, you know, population, as well as in the Black community, because I think there were a lot of Black people that were unaware of a lot how deep certain things went. Like, I know that a lot of Black people understood what was going on, but a lot of Black people didn't know how deep it went, right? And you know, even within their own upbringing and growing up as well, right? But for people who are like that still, or who are all the naysayers or the conspiracy, I feel sorry for them. I do, because, you know, it's a reflection, as you guys were saying, of how they truly see probably themselves on the inside and are projecting that out towards other people. You know, the other day, my cousin had posted on Facebook and she said, "I'm a proud Black woman." And this guy came under that and he said, "So what?" And my initial reaction was to, you know, kirk off, say something about it, right? But then I had to, it was a moment to hit him with love, because I feel so sorry for him that he's not proud to be who he is. You get what I'm saying? Like, why would he try to, despite what it was, if she said she was a proud nurse, if she said that she was a proud whatever, why do you have to throw sand at her for being proud of who she is? And I think that that is a great way to, to overall look at it and to see it, when you have those people who are the conspiracy theorists, or that, or that really don't still have a clue of what's going on, to, to hit them with love, and to be able to, what? They have some, some things that they have to see and grow through and go through and all of that, to be able to get to the understanding that we are right here, right now. So
Well said.
I hope that was answering the question.
1000% beautifully. And you're so right. I mean, because what you said is, why should someone chime in because someone's saying they're proud of their culture, of their race? Like you said, she could say, I'm a proud nurse, probably wouldn't have said a single word. So yeah, I am with you on that. Like I said, I'm really working hard this year to keep my eye on my prize, not focus so much on everyone else's issues. All right, Brenda, same question for you.
Yeah, I think I'm one of those black people that Sean was saying, that don't engage in those. I don't. That's not my work. That's not my desire. I do not engage in those conversations at all. I think that, whatever resonates with you is what you should do. But for me, like, having conversations with black folks about, like, okay, what are we gonna do? Like, working, building, networking. Because, if I spent my time like trying to come to a place of understanding and trying to get people and trying to explain my humanity and trying to give you, like, I just, like, I wouldn't have the energy to do all the other stuff that I'm doing. And so I had to choose, and I choose progress, and I choose just building, as opposed to like ignorance and debates and, like banging your head against the wall. It's just not for me. So I don't engage.
I got you on that 1000%. I created this group, Vegans for Black Lives Matter, and it was literally like, when I tell people this, they think I'm making it up, but it was really a divine thought. I don't like doing groups because it requires just too much emotional output and nurturing, and people want to message you, but it was something that just caused me to do it. And it was such a learning lesson for me, because I wanted to like hug it out, kumbaya it out. And my inbox was constantly lit up, all the arguments, all the drama. Usually, like every month, there's usually one thing that goes off on the group. But what I learned was like, I can't, it's not my job to kumbaya everybody, like you said, like, talk about some solutions with my people. And I don't mind sharing an article or having some conversations and creating some great topics, but it was really emotionally draining from day one. Like, it really emotionally drained me. And I realized too, which is a segue into my next question, is how you deal with burnout. Because one of the things I've learned about myself is like, burnout doesn't always come from like physical assertion and things like that. It can come from emotional energy being given and shared, and not really putting yourself first. And I keep thinking that I figured it out, and I keep learning that I'm still not getting it right. So what are you all doing to make sure that you are taking care of yourself, putting yourself first, and just making sure that you maintain a good balance throughout the year while you still do the work? And I will ask that of you, Sean.
Woo, yeah, and I'll answer Vanessa's questions as well that kind of tie into this, I think. Because there's the biggest way I prevent burnout is having, I'd say, all my dialogues or arguments with people in a way that is entirely constructive, and I'd say like more impactful than thinking it's a lost cause, or thinking or letting my lower self get into it, basically, right? And what I mean by that, for example, even having a loving argument, there was one friend that said, for example, that they had their brother-in-law just was not like he was just so against Black Lives Matter and didn't believe in what they were fighting for. And at the same time, he said that he was a victim of police brutality, right? And this was a white male from like a state Midwest somewhere. I forgot the name of her hometown. But anyway, the point is that when I heard that, and my friend was saying, yeah, I can't believe he said that. And then, you know, I got on him about BLM. I was so upset that he just wasn't even understanding. And I said, whoa, that's a moment for you to understand. If someone was assaulted by cops, you show up first with empathy for that. That's so important to even acknowledge and appreciate that he opened up, because she didn't know that, right? She never knew that about this guy. And at the same time, when I hear that, it makes me take a step back, you know, from even my own causes and whatnot, because I'm like, wait, what good is my cause if people don't understand it or aren't behind it sometimes, right? I have to think about that. And then at the same time, to get to the place with him, it was great that I even had this idea, because it was something where she had resistance to it. She's so used to fighting and arguing a cause that when you use empathy instead, and you use understanding and the slowness of taking in someone's story first, so you can even have an honest dialogue, right? I think that's helped me out, where I'm not as resistant to listening as I used to be. You know, I can listen to, even if it's complete like nonsense, or if it's has some kind of like rational part that I do understand why they think that way, whether it's either or, there's a calm to listen. There's a, you're there with the person and you're not just speaking at them. And that's huge, right? Because whether you're right or wrong, like what are the all the times we've been wrong about something, we never like it when someone speaks at us, right? We never like, you know, being wrong. And on top of that, someone shoving the rightness in our face, right? So even though this topic it is life or death, it is a higher sense of urgency. I think that's all the more reason to kind of take in these moments with empathy and approach these moments with a dose of love, because I've seen the pain of those kind of misunderstandings of people turn into violence. I've seen it for myself, where I remind myself the patience I can have, because I could be talking to the next person that wants to be a police officer, and they end up shooting another Tamir Rice, you know, another young child. If I would have just slowed down maybe and talked to this person in a different way, I could actually save Black lives, right? And of course, that's a big weight to carry, you know, and I understand that's a lot maybe I'm putting on my own shoulders, but it does help with the patience. It does help with making sure you're not just falling into it. It's a debate or you're trying to win something, you know? So I wanted to really make sure people understood that and know that for sure.
I love that, because one of the things that I said I'm more conscious of doing is when I'm out in public, I'm out walking, shopping, is to be more conscious of me smiling. So I always try to make sure when I'm walking and somebody walks past, I just, you know, smile or good morning. And not that I'm trying to do any like hardcore work, but I think there's something beautiful about a smile when you see someone, you know, walking past and they just give you a nice little glow. So, and I feel like that's my contribution, because I feel like too, there's so many stereotypes. And I've worked on and really done a good job perfecting it. There's something called resting bitch face that I used to have like just naturally, where I would just automatically just look angry. And maybe because I was, but but I try to work on, you know, my presentation more and just look more happy. And one thing too that I've experienced is that sometimes when a person is angry and they want to fight everybody, they have to sometimes tire themselves out like a child and evolve themselves out of that that frequency. Because I know one of the things that I had done for a while was I was really good at suppressing my emotions when it came to like police brutality and things like that, because I had saw and experienced so much growing up. I was just like exhausted of like feeling that. So I would distract myself with different things. And then when last year hit, I was like, you know what, the suppression is, literally affecting my physical body. So I allowed myself to watch the videos, to cry, to be upset. And I realized that allowing myself to feel pushed me over to the other side, to where I was able to reach for that compassion a little bit easier. So sometimes a person has to evolve themselves out of that angry phase and just get tired of it and be ready to turn the page and do something different. Thanks for sharing that, Sean. Let's see. And I think I asked, Reed, I'm sorry, did I ask you the same question already? I am so sorry. I got all these questions here. Reed, you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I was trying to unmute it. It wouldn't unmute.
Oh.
So no, I think Sean went first.
Okay. So go ahead, you can answer the question.
So I am a firm believer that with all things, you have to take care of self first. And I think that that is even where we're going to see change, is making sure that we're all checking in with ourselves first, and then within our community, and then branching out outside of that, so we can come together as a whole. So staying true to what I have to do, making sure I have the proper boundaries open. That goes with everything. That goes with social media, that goes with my family, that goes with friends, that goes with whatever, even my dogs. I have to set up boundaries with them to make sure that I'm okay, right? And so making sure that I'm staying true to myself in all areas is what I consider my contribution to the the shift of the planet, right? And so yeah, like just making sure I wake up at 5 every day, do my routine, make sure I stay hydrated, because I don't think that people as a whole understand we are water, so we need that in order to flow and to be in proper flow. So I make sure I stay hydrated, eating hydrated foods, things like that. All of that plays a part in my personal self-care. So yeah.
Beautiful. I love what you said about creating boundaries even with your dogs, because I have to do that with my cat. She's very loving and very loves to touch, loves to cuddle. Like, she is just a lover. And sometimes I'm like, no, I do not want to be bothered with you. This is my time. So I totally get the boundaries.
Sure.
All right. And same thing for you, Brenda. Like, what do you do to take care of yourself and to make sure that, because you do a lot, you have a lot that you do. What do you do to make sure that you don't, burn out at the end of the year?
Yeah, burnout is real. I actually experienced it at the end of 2018. And I actually had to take 6 months off from activism, because I think as activists, and I'm not saying like take time off from activism. I'm just like, I got to a point where I had to, because it was destroying my health. But I think that as activists, we just take a deep dive into like the worst of society. Like, we know too much. And like, the more I got into just being sort of in solidarity with other movements, and like working within other movements, and finding out how terrible the world is for other people, it was just like, it went from Black issues to like animal rights to like the sex trafficking and sweatshops and all these, and I just knew too much, and it was just weighing me down. Like, I just felt this huge weight on me all the time. And it finally kind of came to a head, and I was just miserable. And so I think that it really is important to moderate how much of the world's awfulness you let in at any given time. Just have that turn off valve. And like, if it's too much, put the article down, put the, book down, like, and just turn off the news, whatever, and just go to like a happy place or a joyful place. If that's like, you know, the forest, if it's like you know, a meditation, if it's a massage, whatever, even if it's just sitting in a dark room and just shutting everything out, because, you know, we take it all on, and it can be a really, really heavy burden. So nowadays, just getting outside in the fresh air. I love trees. I love just being around trees. I will just sit, and I mean, I will hug a tree. You know, I'm not ashamed. And just like that beautiful transference of energy, and you know, it really does it for me. And then also like eating well, staying hydrated, those kinds of things as well. I try to do, but yeah, learning how to turn it off when you need to is a big thing.
That is so funny. I talk to trees. I literally walk by, and I went walking last week with a friend, and we were walking past these trees. I was like, hold on. I was giving the trees. They had little things, branches, high fives. So I was walking by, like because they're conscious beings. Like people don't realize like they are alive and conscious just like we are, but in a different type of capacity. Um, and you know, I had a similar situation in December. Well, I go through burnout every freaking year, and I'm learning now not to wait for the burnout because the climb back up is too hard to come back. So it's like now I'm learning, like, give yourself many breaks even when you don't feel tired. Take a little break, even if it's just going to a hotel or something, or like you said, in the dark, or just be quiet. December, I went through a burnout, ended up getting COVID. And the COVID was literally a lifesaver because it allowed me to cancel everything. And I shut everything down and was able to rest without guilt or constantly checking my email or feeling bad about things. So it was a blessing in disguise. So I totally get it. Like, yeah, you can't let everything in and feel everything because it will take you down. So my next question, thank you, Vanessa, for your funny messages on here. Next question, or actually, this is for everybody. So we're going to get into like a little bit of personal information about each person. Ri and I were talking yesterday, and she is a business owner. We were laughing about she was saying how her 7 dogs planned a hike without her. She has a very conscious and spiritual relationship with her animal companions. And just, you know, I've watched some of your lives in the groups, and you really seem to have it figured out. So I want to talk to you a bit about your spirituality and how that connects you with the animals that you have in your home.
Yeah, so I have always been really aware that dogs are capable of more than we give them credit for. I learned how to kind of tap into that just based off of needing my dogs to comply, right? Like I need them to do certain things. So we speak 2 different languages. So I had to bridge that gap to figure out how to communicate with them, right? Without yelling and screaming and spanking and having to do any type of body manipulation, just because I did not feel like it was necessary. Well, um, my dogs, they are free, right? And I think that that's one thing that we have lost touch with is our freedom. And that's something that I'm able to tap into based off of my dogs, is just watching them do what's natural to them, right? And then be able to look at that and be like, oh, well, this is how they handle situations that's similar to this, that I personally am going through, and I can take that and apply it based off of it's literally the equivalent to what you were saying, Brenda, of just like being around trees, being around my dogs. I gain information from them, you know, because again, they already have it figured out, right? Like I'm here for a little bit of guidance, only based off of the world that I need them to live in, right? Like if I didn't need them to live in this type of world, they wouldn't need my guidance. And so Gwenna was talking about them going on a hike. I just moved, and I have a fenced in backyard, but my backyard is separate from from the house. So there's a porch in between. So there's the house, porch in between, and then the gate to get to the backyard. So I let them out. They potty did their thing, getting ready to let them in. My dogs are very well behaved in the sense of they know to, if I ask them to come with me, they come with me. Well, again, there's this gap in between the door and the gate. I open the gate and they all make a hard right to this big open field that is nothing but trees, and it's a creek over there. And they were over there like little gazelles in the time of their life. They did not hear me when I said, guys, what are you doing? And I couldn't help but laugh, because we had, as a whole, me and my dogs had just come out of such a traumatic situation, and I knew that they needed it. We were living in Washington, D.C., and there isn't a lot, and I'm getting emotional, there isn't a lot of hiking space, and you have to, it's an inconvenience to get to those hiking spaces when you do go hiking. And so dogs need to ground just like we need to ground with the earth. And so I couldn't get mad at them for doing what their body needed it, like I can see a difference in my dogs when I don't meet their emotional bank account the way that they need their emotional bank account met, meaning that, of course I feed and water and, and get exercise and all of that, but I'm talking about those conversations. I'm talking about that cuddling. I'm talking about that, that affection, that eye contact, that release of oxytocin that they find very necessary for their overall well-being as well. They need connection. Now, granted, there are dogs with personalities that like my husky, for instance, she is very loving, very affectionate, but only when she wants to be. It's not an all the time thing. It's not like, oh yeah, like if I went to go cuddle her right now, she'd probably get up and move, because just the space that she's in right now, she wants space. And that's something that I've learned just from paying attention. She comes to me when she wants affection, and it's up to me to meet those needs in those, in those times. And so with me, just understanding that dogs, have a way greater cognitive ability than we give them credit for has been transformative for me in my vegan journey, in my spiritual journey. Like when I first went vegan, I could literally hear my dogs in my head. And most people would think, oh, you're no, I can hear you don't understand. I can hear my dogs in my head. And I was able to flip that. I was able to learn to talk to them without using my mouth and without using my words. I can ask my dogs to come here without saying a word. I can ask my dogs to wait without saying a word. I have a new addition, Taki. He's the newest addition, got him right at the beginning of COVID, and he's still learning that I have eyes in the back of my head. And he finds it very interesting. So I'll, simply, I ask my dogs to do things once. Hey, I'm putting this in the trash. Like I was chopping peppers yesterday. I put the pepper in a box, like, because I was throwing what was in the box away. So I just went ahead and I tossed it in there. It's at his level. I said, don't bother that. It's not for you. Because it had seeds and stuff like that in it. So don't bother it. It's not for you. And I turned away because I shouldn't have to say it another time, because we've had this conversation that I don't want you to get into it, right? So turn my back to wash. He turned, I said, Taki, get out of it. I heard his feet pitter patter towards it, right? But in his word, I heard him stop, and he's like, how did she know? How did she know? And he was like, it's not even worth it. I'm just gonna turn around and leave out of the kitchen. Like, it's just not even, thank you, son, is what I just turned up. Thank you, son. So yeah, like they have been beyond a grounding experience for me, y'all. Like they teach me what drive is. So in regards to just my business, I have been able to continuously go and keep going because of the drive that they have. If it's something that they want, they go for it. If it's something that they need, they go for it. If it's something that, is overall just, part of who they are, They don't stop until it is something that they need. And I have to be mindful of that, especially when I'm asking them to do the opposite of what it is that they're wanting to do. Stop and ask myself, okay, why? Why is it that I've had to ask him 3 times not to bother this, or to get out of this, or to not go make forward motion towards that? And be able to turn that and be like, oh, okay, well, maybe he thinks it's this, or maybe it's because he actually needs it. Maybe he's thirsty. Maybe he's hungry. Maybe, he has some sort of nutrition deficiency in, the food, or whatever the case may be. I'm able to ask myself why in regards to every situation based off of just watching them. Y'all, like, just seriously just watching them and letting them be. And that, even within itself in return, has taught me to allow people to be. And, regardless to who they are and the part that they play in my life, people are just gonna be people, and them individually, if that makes sense, not necessarily people as a whole, right? I'm talking about that person is going to be that person individually. So it's the only job that I have is to let that person and allow that person to just be. And again, I learned that lesson from my dogs.
That's
so yeah, absolutely. I can go on and on about this. Cut me off if you need to cut me off. Cut me off if you need to cut me off, y'all. Like, and I have to say this, I had multiple signs that I needed to revamp relationships in my life. And the neon sign, the literal neon sign, was from them. Was from them that I needed to revamp some relationships, because they would ask me for something, I wouldn't have the patience. They would, look a certain way. They were walking a certain way, and it had to literally smack me in the face from them. They had told me prior to. It's a matter of listening to them when they finally, look.
Yeah.
But again, cut me off, Gwenna, because like I said, I can talk about him all day.
It sounds like you were having like communicating with your dogs. You said when you went vegan, like you were experiencing telepathy.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And that's a sense that people don't think is real. And it's a total real sense.
Oh, yeah.
It's telepathy. Just not everybody acknowledges or taps into it. So I love that. I get it a lot in my dreams, telepathic communication, and my cat will usually, if there's something I'm not getting, in this version of reality, she'll come to me in my dreams and will communicate to me telepathically and tell me something. And I'm like, oh, sorry, you've been trying to tell me, didn't realize it. So yeah, I totally get that. That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And how can people, so if you can just really quick, because I want to get to Sean and Brenda really quickly, how can people utilize your services?
So my website is redemptiondogeducation.com. All of my handles are at Redemption Dog Education. So Instagram is Redemption Dog Education, as well as Facebook. So I offer private virtual lessons, as well as, depending on the area that I am in at the time, maybe in person. But right now, most of my sessions, just because I am traveling, are virtually. But again, that is Redemption Dog Education. I think you just put it in the comments.
Yeah, I just put it in there. Perfect.
Yeah, so yeah, that's how I can be reached.
Okay, beautiful. All right, and Brenda, I know you work on like everything. You're doing like, I first saw you at People of Color Advocacy panel or something here in Los Angeles, and you were probably, I think you were, I had never seen a Black vegan female doing you were doing a festival, you were doing different events. I had never seen anything like that, and I was like in total like awe of that. And it seems like you just keep adding and just keep doing more and more. So what are you working on right now?
Lots of stuff. I think the biggest project right now with Afro-Vegan Society is we're in the middle of Veguary, which is a 28-day vegan pledge program that we are providing to folks. We are supporting folks with, resources and programming to help them to go vegan for the month of February. And our goal is forever. And so, it's been going really well. We have tons and tons of free program. Everything that we do is free. So, free programming, panel discussions, Q&As, interviews, just a lot of really good information. And we're featuring Black vegan trailblazers as well every single day. So we have programming every single day, 28 days straight. It's been a lot, but it's been also so rewarding. We have the Facebook group, which is a support group for folks to sort of just support each other, and we have not just non-vegans or not just aspiring vegans, but also vegans who've joined up and they are participating in the program as a support system. So it's been great, and folks, like, it's a rolling entry, a rolling registration, so people can still plug in at afrovegansociety.org, and just go to Veguary, and all the information is there. We've also gotten a ton of support from other organizations, even businesses, who just see something like this happening specifically in Black History Month, and we are, celebrating Black History Month by giving back, to folks, and so that part of it really feels good as well.
Beautiful. And you said afrovegansociety.org. And
Yes.
you also you have a restaurant as well?
Right. So it's a deli and market. And so right now, we had some issues with COVID, and so we kind of um we put the retail side on hold, and we're sort of reformulating how we're going to do the retail side. We're still doing wholesale right now, so a lot of restaurants and cafes all over Baltimore like use our products. Like, we are the vegan option on their menu. We make cheeses, meats, egg products. Like, our goal was to like get affordable plant-based foods into communities that can't generally access them or afford them. And so we've been doing that in Baltimore. And so we have a target date for when we want to reopen. So for everybody who's been, you know, messaging us every day, like, when are you going to reopen? We do have a target date for reopening that we're going to be announcing soon. And we're going to focus more on the market side than we were before, so that people will have like meals that they can take home and cook for their families, in addition to, the hot foods that we prepare in house. So we really, really want to sort of create a culture of plant-based eating where we support people in transitioning their families to plant-based eating. So that's pretty exciting as well.
That is, congratulations on all that success. I didn't know you were doing wholesale and supplying the whole vegan world there. That's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. What about you, Mr. Hill?
Hey, well, first, I'm still cracking up at the, when Brenda's like, it's a deli, actually. I was cracking up. Because, of course,
I felt it.
right? Yeah, in the East Coast, of course, like, those are the same thing to a lot of us, you know what I mean? So I was like, yeah, that's a restaurant to me. Like, I'll go eat there at the deli. What? So anyway, yeah, I basically can be contacted on letsbendreality.com. That's my website, but then also all my social media is Let's Bend Reality. And even the name Let's Bend Reality comes from the ending of a poem that kind of, I didn't know how much it would stick with people, until they started saying it back to me. And they were like, Sean, I can't wait to bend reality, man. And I was like, what? Like, dude, like, this feels good, right? And it was kind of those moments where you never know the impact of what you're doing on people until they reflect it back, right? So I kind of just made my whole brand about that, reminding myself also that this world, basically the way it is now, we don't have to accept it the way it is, and we can shape it and bend it to what we all want it to be, So yeah, whether it's poetry events or acting events and projects, all of my kind of work is in the vein of inner peace and world peace through inner peace, right? And with poetry, kind of just connected as well to just help, you know, everyone from high school youth. I've done a few middle schools, but, you know, sometimes the poetry, sometimes, but then most of the time, I'm not gonna lie, they're deeper than we are. You know what I mean? Like those of you, they're getting it. They're like, they're telling me about metaphors. You know what I mean? So it's been really inspiring processing journey. And so yeah, from middle school youth to college youth, I'm hosting open mics. I'm helping out with workshops as well. And I'd say, yeah, also in terms of, gosh, I'd say the last thing also, I didn't expect this, but there's like every now and again, I'll get a client that just wants to talk about race or understanding something, or, you know, a painful moment with like a family member or a friend that passed away. And you never know like what you're holding space for, you know, as a poet mentor or guide. So, you know, I'm even open and willing for people, if they wanted to talk about race more and dive into that more, I can even do a poetry workshop centered on that and reflective of that as well. So I'm kind of just branching out more to build those bridges right now. And I'd say, yeah, that was it. Yeah, at Let's Bend Reality. Yeah, I went off on a tangent there. What's up?
No, you know, it's good because I remember you did an event. You came through for me at with 100blackmen.org. And we were at the college, and I was so nervous because it was young Black men. And I'm like, this has to be a hit. And those young men were so impressed by you. And the way you were doing your poetry, like they synced into you immediately. And I never forgot that. Like you showed out on that. And I was like, okay, like I already knew you were, you know, a unicorn, but I'm like, okay, I get it now. So I just have to acknowledge that. And you're also not a former, but you've done a TED Talk. So you're really amazing human being. And I just really appreciate you.
Gwenna, don't make me cry right now, because you will. Well, that was a great day, by the way. I really did have a great day that day. And I was inspired by you just as well, just to let you know that, because I didn't know you were doing that kind of work until I saw it up close. You know what I mean? Until I saw it, I was like, what? She's inspiring people like every other day, if not every day. I'm like, come on, now, this is a lot. This was a lot. And you do it well, my friend. So much respect, much respect.
Well, it's an effort because I certainly couldn't do it by myself. And, you know, it was important to have a male figure there talking to these young men. And I think Wose was also there too, with his delicious food and talking about entrepreneurship. So it was really great. I want to see if we have, Lisa, how we're doing on time. I think we're kind of coming to the end. I don't see a lot of questions, just a lot of like really nice comments, but not really so much questions.
I see the question in one of the Q&As by Nancy Kobe.
Okay.
Yeah, it says, in what ways do you see the domination and domestication of non-human animals as fundamental to all other dominations and oppressions? For example, regarding An Unnatural Order, book by Mason. I'm kind of lost on that one, but yeah. That makes sense to any of y'all, let me know.
I don't know how to answer that. I think Reed did a good, I don't know, because I don't see the question for some reason. I can't see it. But I think Reed's explanations of, you know, how she communicates with them and letting them be free as much as she can in the reality that she's created for them. And I get that because I have guilt with my cat. Like I don't let her out because of coyotes. We had a close call. But I know in her nature, she needs to be free. And so I struggle with keeping her trapped and captive and letting her go about and get grounded and smell the grass and things like that. So that's something that I struggle with right now.
So if I can say something about that, Gwenna, one thing that I try really hard to teach my clients, and this applies for dogs, I assume that it will apply for cats as well, or any type of pet. The first rule of getting a proper relationship is trust. And believe it or not, we make the mistake of thinking that, oh, well, I have to get the animal to trust me. It's actually the opposite. You trust the animal first, and then the animal will trust you. And so if you can trust your dog enough that, okay, he won't run away. Like that's one of the reasons why, even with the hiking trip that they planned that day. I had no fear that they were going to run away or do anything that was so over a boundary when they ran off like that, and your average pet parent would have been freaking out because, oh no, they're gonna, run away. They don't know where they are, all of those things. But I trust my dogs. I trust my dogs to know where they're supposed to be and what order it's supposed to go in regards to situations like that. So I think, us stepping away from the mindset that these are animals, right? In the way that we see animals, because even then, and on the flip side of that, being able to tap into our personal animal instincts, right? Because we lost them. We lost them. We don't know how to, to do a lot of the things that, we should know how to do and survive. If the power cut off, we would all flip out, right? If the water cut off, we would lose it. Whereas, there are ways to get those things and to purify those things, and that are just nature, right? We don't need anything else but nature. We've been spoiled by the conveniences. So utilizing our animals in that regards of seeing how they're so connected to God, because that's where we're striving to be, is, being more connected to source and, and things like that. And so if we can utilize them for that purpose as well, I think that would be extremely beneficial.
Great points. Lisa, I think we're coming to the end.
Yes, it's been an absolutely amazing conversation. I have learned so much. I've enjoyed the topics, and it's been wonderful to hear everyone and be part of this conversation. I'm reflecting a lot of the comments that I saw in the chat box about how people are sharing that they learned and they're really enjoying it. And so it's really been a pleasure. I want to thank each of you for spending the time together today, because I know you're all very, very busy because you're in the process of making history as we speak. And so I'm really grateful to each of you for your time and for sharing a piece of your soul with us today, and for your perspective and your wisdom, and also to hear about your amazing projects. So we're all going to be following very closely. And thanks to everyone who joined us today. This has been a wonderful way to spend part of our Thursday together. So again, this is a pleasure for In Defense of Animals to host this as part of Activist Appreciation Month. And if you want to find out any more about that, you can go to idausa.org/activist month. We've got different programs going on all month long, and the idea is to appreciate the work that activists are doing. So thanks to everyone, and special thanks to Gwenna for doing the moderating of this panel today and for arranging everything, and Sean for your questions, and again to everyone for your time, from Brenda and Ri, really from the bottom of my heart, super grateful.
Yeah, this was a really, really good panel. So I just want to thank everybody. Again, you can find Ri Taylor at, let me go back up here,
redemptiondogeducation.com.
Yes, redemptiondogeducation.com.
And I forgot to mention earlier that my online course will be up for pre-sale at the end of this month. It's going to be the Dog Education Masterclass, where we're going to learn all about communicating with our dogs in a completely different way. So I want you to forget everything about dog training, and we're going to start educating our dogs.
I forgot to mention masterclass.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. And you can find Brenda's work at Afro-Vegan-Society.org, and along with Sean Hill at letsbendreality.com. I think he also threw his Instagram in there if you want to follow him. So again, thank you everybody for saying yes. First of all, thank you all. I appreciate when people say yes. Thank you for saying yes. And follow them, and I guess we'll go ahead and end this call. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks to everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Hi, thank you.